Hey guys, we are heading to New Bern, North Carolina to visit Will Johnson of All American Bee Company. He provides nukes, queens, packages, so really excited to see him. We're also going to see his friend Mike Zaytoun, who is a master cabinet maker slash beekeeper, and he just started his own company making woodenware, and from what Will tells me, it's some of the best around. So really looking forward to seeing that, doing an interview with both of the guys, and touring New Bern. See you then.
Now get daddy in. Now daddy go. Come on, y'all. Out my back door. Watch out now. Tambourine and elephant are playing in the band. Why don't you take a ride on a magic phone? Thank you, little girls. Y'all make an old man look good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, man. God bless you guys.
You have a good one.
Y'all have a great day, man. Enjoy yourself.
Thank
okay?
you.
I'm Will Johnson, owner-operator of All American Bee Company. I'm a member of the Craven and Pamlico Beekeepers Association and the North Carolina State Beekeepers Master Beekeeper. And here, located here in New Bern, North Carolina. And this is
Mike Zaytoun. I'm Z-Man, B-Man is the name of my company. I build and manufacture beehive equipment and accessories. And I'm also a member of the Craven Pamlico Bee Association.
we specialize in breeding queens, raising nukes, sell packages, honey products, honey, and so forth.
I'm running 3, and they're new this year. Last year I had 3 hives and lost them. Not sure why. Got some ideas, but not really sure why I lost them. But put in 3 new hives this year with new equipment. I changed over, like Will said, to the 8-frame medium equipment on everything. And that's the reason why I've left the honey. I haven't extracted any honey. But they're strong hives. I've got 4 boxes on each hive, so they're very strong right now. And I'm keeping a close eye on them. I go in them pretty much every week and check them. Not deep every week, but I'll go in them and just check them to see what's going on.
A difficult question to answer. Depending on the time of the year, you know, I make different choices. I try to run 6 to 8 of my personal hives through the winter, plus 2 top bars. I love top bar hives. Not including the nukes that I have, but I'd say at peak time I'm at upwards of about 75 hives. Mainly my breeder nukes, the queen rearing nukes, but then I do have all my honey hives and such. Personal hives, we have quite a few of those. We're gluttons for punishment. We have way too many hives, but we enjoy them. We like working on bees. We have 2 or 3 different types of storms that happen here. One of the storms everybody's really curious with is the hurricanes. Hurricanes here can be an event. Most of the time in eastern North Carolina, they're not that big a deal. We only get real big hurricanes every 20 years or so. But generally, most of our hives are located out of very windy spots. But generally with like most beekeepers, we put a brick on top of our hives or so forth. One thing I like to do is I take a trailer anchor, put it in the ground underneath my hive stands, connect the hive stand to the trailer anchor that's in the ground 2 to 3 feet, and then I ratchet strap my hives to the stands. And they're in not real high windy situations or areas, so just about every storm they've been through, they've rode it out just fine. Then from the hurricanes, we have our general eastern North Carolina summer storms where we get winds 30, 40 mile an hour. And since we do the general hurricane prep, we're good. I mean, we do that anyway for the high winds. But our worst storms, I would have to say, is our nor'easters. They come in on us and they'll stick with us for days, and they're cold and they're wet. And it's the same technique to secure those hives in that situation. But those nor'easters and those hurricanes can raise the water levels in eastern North Carolina. The water in this last hurricane, I believe, came up 8 to 15 feet in certain areas, which we did lose a lot of hives in the low-lying areas here. So if there is a potential flood risk, yes, you would take like a ratchet strap your hive together, get a couple people to help you, and you relocate it to higher ground, whether that be another portion of your yard or to another area of the county. We don't generally leave them right out in the middle of a field. When we got big storms coming in, if we got big storms coming, those winds will blow them over. And most of our apiaries in eastern North Carolina too are protected with some kind of fencing and secured really good in the ground because we have Bern. So we generally try to place those in more of a secure area anyway. The trees, the highlands, and things like that will help protect them. Well, we were talking about this, and you can keep bees anywhere, but it's preferred to keep bees in full sun if possible. It makes beekeeping easier because you're not having to deal with as much of the hive beetle issues and such. But if you're not able to, and you are in shaded areas where I've got several of my hives, shade is fine, and you just have additional challenges you have to face. Michael, I believe, his is partial shaded.
Mine are in full sun.
Yours is full sun? Okay. I've got some that are in full sun. I've got some partial shaded. You can keep them in the middle of a parking lot. You can keep them in a field. You can keep them on a rooftop. I have some on a rooftop.
We typically face them in a southeastern direction
Yes.
to get as much sunlight as possible.
You'll see with honeybees that they'll forage and work up until the last minute before any storm. But it does seem that when we've got a real big cold snap coming or a big front coming in, you will see a rush. It's like they know something's coming. So there'll be like a little bit more of an influx of activity right before it happens. Whether that's just something you're noticing or think about it because you know the storm is coming, or it is really truly that last push because they know they could be in the hive for a period of time.
Yeah, and they don't like rainy weather.
We got plenty of that. So in a typical year, our year, most people think about beekeeping starts in March, but it really doesn't. It starts in December. Right after the winter solstice, when your days start getting a little longer, the queen in the hive will start rearing brood. So right after that, December into January, going mid-January to February, early January, mid-February, or January, we're looking at red maples. Red maples are coming in, and that's a first pollen source for us in our area. The bees are going out there, they're grabbing that pollen, bringing it in, so what that does, it starts that queen. She's starting to build up those hives. So you got a big buildup starting, which is a danger for us, and we'll get into that in a minute. But then from there, you'll start getting into your dandelions. Dandelions are a wonderful plant for honeybees. So if you see anybody that's got them in their yard, tell them not to pull them out. Keep that dandelion yard. It works out great. The bees love it. You got henbit and dead nettle that come on right behind that, right with it. And then right in behind the dead nettle and henbit, you've got white clover. And white clover is a wonderful source for the bees. But with that spring buildup, we got to talk about going on. So we know we're about to March, but January, February, and March is a very dangerous time in eastern North Carolina. Our temperatures fluctuate. We could have 80-degree temperatures in December and January. We can have it in March. We also can get down into the zeros. It doesn't happen at all for most time where 20 degrees or better. Even a lot of times 32 or better. And our bees will fly at like 43, 44 degrees. They're out, you may not go that far. They will go out and source pollen, nectar, and water. But those hives start building up when they can, and they'll get ahead. And what we'll get is these massive brood nests early on, which you can get yourself in trouble because if you weren't paying attention to your hives, you can set up swarming situations. Or you get these massive brood nests, and then they eat up all the resources in the hive, and the hives starve to death. Most hives in North Carolina are lost February, March time frame because they don't have the resources. So they get in there, they get these giant hives built up, and they just wipe out everything because this cold snap comes in. And when that cold snap comes in, it makes it hard on these bees, and they can't eat. Also, when these cold snaps come in, all these other flowers we mentioned, if we get a cold period of time here that hits us for 3 or 4 days, we may lose all of our forage, except for certain hardy plants which aren't necessarily good for the bees. We have a plant that comes on about the same time the dead nettle and the dandelions do, right in there at the end of March, right at our last freeze dates. It's called Carolina jessamine. It's a yellow vine plant. Looks similar to a honeysuckle, but not quite. And what we've found is when we get these late freezes that kill off all our forage, that the honeybees go to this Carolina jessamine. And this Carolina jessamine is highly toxic to honeybees. So it looks like a pesticide poison. You just get a bunch of bees that are going down quaking, laying in the bottom hives, and you'll lose them by the tens of thousands. And the best thing to do, I mean, you can have a monster hive, and you'll just lose the whole hive if after something like this. The best thing to do is you've had a real hard frost that's killed off all the forage for at least a good week or so. Get you a gallon feeder of sugar syrup, put it on those hives, give them something to go to other than trying to go out there and get to that Carolina jessamine. But after the Carolina jessamine, we got the good clover buildup and all that. That's our real good spring push is that clover buildup. Then you got the people planting the red clover and the buckwheat and the sunflowers and so forth, going through, getting you into summer. Then you got all your other farm crops and everything on the outskirts of town. But we have, a privet, we've got things like that. It gets you in well into summer. And, like I said, all your garden crops, plus all the flowers that everybody's got in town. All these blackberries, strawberries, these different flowers, like strawberries is a big thing that get pollinated with honeybees in this part of the state early on. Blueberries is another one that they come and they source out hives for. But takes us on into midsummer. Midsummer, we're getting into a little bit of a dearth. They will go to the crepe myrtle and things like that when they start blooming and so forth. But right now, we're coming in probably at the end of our really rough time that we have. Rain's also a challenge because, if we have all these really abundant nectar sources, but we get a lot of rain, bees can't get to it, just washing all the nectar out. So therefore, it's the same thing as a dearth. In years we have a lot of rain, it's a challenge for beekeepers. You may end up having to feed because your bees are starving to death because they got these big hives that can't eat. So you got to really pay attention to your hives. So you get out there. We're going into right now, coming off of the end of the crepe myrtle blooms and so forth. But now we're getting ready to go into all the ones that the ragweeds, the goldenrod, the Joe Pye weed, etc. And that'll take us on into, you know, later in the fall, and then we'll get ready to start all over again. Once everything comes off this fall rush, this fall bloom, then you'll go into the slowdown period. North Carolina, eastern North Carolina, may not truly have a dead period. You may not get the typical broodless period in your hive that a lot of places talk about. It's warm enough in eastern North Carolina that you may have brood in your hive all year round. Your queen may stay laying hard and heavy all year round. You may get a few weeks in December where she slacks off. You know, end of November, you're going to definitely see a decrease. October, you're going to see the drones get kicked out. Things to start looking for where the hive is going to start dwindling down a little bit. But the big thing is, don't go out there, don't feed them that pollen, don't screw up the natural cycle. Let them build their winter bees, the fat bees that'll make it through the long winter. But the hot cold that we see is a challenge for us, because we have to hold a lot more honey in our hives through the winter because of that. If we go hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, the bees are using up a lot of resources when it's warm. They're flying. These are these winter bees that aren't necessarily used to being out burning all this energy, and they're doing what they can. There's not a lot of resource flowing through certain parts of the year, so they're going through a lot of this honey. And if it's really warm, they'll build the hives up. And like we talked about in the spring, they'll build the hives up and they'll wipe the resources out. So you have to leave a little extra for them, for us. But there's just a quick rundown through the different forages that are available. Mosquitoes are a problem. We're in eastern North Carolina. We have water everywhere. Water stands. There's not much you can do about it. The best thing you can do is keep all standing water drained. You know, if you got a bucket flipped over, flip it over so it can't hold water and such. Now, the city does go through from time to time, and they will spray for mosquitoes. We're lucky that we live in an area where our city, New Bern, is very, very bee friendly. And if you'll take the time and call them and let them know you have bees, give them the address, and you can call the state too and notify them, register at the bee check. And what they'll do is the city will let you know that, hey, we're going to spray, but they're going to stay X amount of blocks away from your property. And they'll do their spraying, and they'll tell you what they're going to spray with. And they pick a very effective chemical for what they're doing that is the least harmful for bees, and they spray at the appropriate times. We have a very knowledgeable city here that does due diligence in the mosquito abating efforts. They let you know, they spray at night, they tell you the chemical, and it's up to you as the beekeeper to make the decision what you need to do to protect your hive, whether it be put a sprinkler on them overnight or during the day, whatever's going on, or throw a wet sheet over them, or clog up all the entrances. You know, it's up to you. Most of the time here in New Bern, with the chemicals they're spraying, the way they're applying it, and the distance they're staying away from our hives, there's no need for us to take any action. But the city here is wonderful at letting us know what's going on. Okay, Varroa is an increasing problem that we have. It hasn't gone away. It's just getting worse. We're finding out that the threshold limits are much lower than what we found in the past. The best way you can deal about dealing with Varroa is, one, select good bees that can deal with it. You know, get a good hygienic bee, Varroa sensitive. Get a good queen. That'll help rear good brood there that will take care of the mite issue a little bit on their own. But you do need to go through and check for mites. Michael and I were just discussing a little while ago, he's going to go sample his bees here in a while, but he hasn't had to treat them this year. He's got a good line of bees. They've been keeping the mite loads low. Get an alcohol wash kit, perform an alcohol wash every couple of months, check your mite loads.
I've actually been checking mine every month.
So,
well, I started in June.
So you're being extremely proactive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing. I mean, it's 300 bees. It's not a lot of bees. But if you ever get down to a 2% mite load, you need to be thinking about some kind of treatment. Whether you're looking at a natural brood break treatment, or I guess treatment may not be the word, maybe manage. Let's use management technique. Because a lot of people don't like the word treat. But, I mean, honestly, you're managing your bees. That's what it is. You're a beekeeper. If you're not managing your bees, you're a bee-haver. You're not a beekeeper. And we all want to be beekeepers. So we want to go out there. We need to know what our Varroa counts are. We're going to do our Varroa counts diligently. If we have a high Varroa count, we start to seeing 2%, we're looking at a management technique here. We're going to take the queen out, do a brood break, re-queen. We can do powdered sugar treatments. There are all kinds of things, but there's a lot of natural ways of doing it too. And a lot of people are like, oh no, you're adding chemicals. Well, acetic acid is a naturally found chemical. You can put it in your hive. There's ways of applying it, different ways. It works great for Varroa. Formic acid is another great one. That's found naturally. Then you have all your different essential oils you can use that are in the different chemicals. You can do your research on it. I'm not promoting one or the other, but I do have some favorites. I use a little bit of all of them when necessary, but what I use mainly is a good queen. The small hive beetle issue, place them in sun. Place your hives in sun. That's the best thing to do to keep small hive beetles down. 2, the board that we showed you a little while ago, the Freeman board, that is a great way of keeping small hive beetle numbers at a minimum. It's not letting the pupa, the larva, get down to the ground to pupate. So it's catching, it's killing them, stopping that life cycle. A good, strong colony will deal with small hive beetles. If you don't have time, don't try it. That's something that you got to be very diligent about. You got to know the life cycles and get those frames in and get them out. You miss one, now you've created Varroa bombs. You don't want to do that.
So I tried it last year and I was not very successful with it. But there are people in our club that beekeepers that are very successful.
And if you got time, it's a great natural way of doing it. But you cannot miss it. I mean, you know, you have to get those frames out. It works. You can't take it away, but you've got to have time. And that's the big thing that a lot of beekeepers get into. They get into beekeeping and they think it's not going to be that time consuming. 1 or 2 hives is not going to take you that much. But with anything like chickens and so forth, you get in 1 or 2 and you want a lot more than that. And you end up getting much more hives and it takes a little bit more time. So, you know, think about it. Think about your lifestyle and what you want to be and how many bees you want to have or hives you want to have, and adjust from there.
Yeah, and you know, the percentage on the Varroa count has changed. They've changed their thinking on that in the last year or so.
Yeah, it used to be 3%. They said you need to do something to your hive. Now the number's 1%. It's gone down to 1. 5%, they pretty much said your hive, you might as well count on it unless you do some drastic measures, you might as well count on your hive dying. So 5% is almost a death sentence. 3%, you've passed the point of doing something. 1%, you need to be making a decision.
Yeah, so basically if you see mites, you need to make a decision.
What has worked real well for us, and it's something that most beekeepers ought to think of, is take your losses in the fall. So if you don't have a hive right about now that you really don't think is where you want it to be, or even suspect it may not make it, go ahead now and combine it up with one of your other hives. And then what you've done is you just really gave that other hive an extra boost. And what you can do is you can take now 1 less hive you have to check on through the winter, gives you a little bit more time. And then you come through, and usually in spring you come out with some pretty monster hives that you're going to have to go down and split. And when you start splitting them out, you come out ahead because you usually get more splits than what you combine. So it's a managed loss instead of letting them go through the winter and then having die-outs. And that's a true loss, and that's not what we want. We're managing our bees, and we're going through and we take our losses in the fall.
Yeah, I got into building the equipment. I'm a cabinet maker by trade, and I thought, well, rather than purchase the boxes and the hives, I'd build my own, and then I decided to just get into the business a little bit, because what I was seeing on the market purchase just wasn't the quality that I would want for myself or for someone else to have, so I decided to get into it. I'm constructing the hives out of a rough sawn lumber, which is rough sawn on one side and smooth on the other, because we're determining that the bees prefer the rough sawn for propolis. it's easier for them to build propolis on the rough soil than on the smooth surface. And you know, when you really stop and think about it, these in the wild, they don't really have dressed lumber and wood that they build their hives on. It's all rough. So,
Right.
you know, we're trying to duplicate that, and that's one of the things. And then of course the quality and the workmanship that we do too is far superior than what you can purchase. This is a screen bottom board that I build all in one piece with the sloped front on it, and then it's ventilated on the sides, and then it also has the Freeman tray for hive beetles built into it also. But most of the bottom boards that you see and screen bottoms that you see on the market are two-piece. I decided to build a one-piece screen bottom. When I first started with the hives, I was just building the boxes and the screen bottoms and the lids, the tops, and just the components for a hive. And then I started had people asking me about foundations and the frames, and well, do you have a smoker, and do you have this, and do you have that? And I thought, well, shoot, I'll just start carrying some other things too. So that's where you see all these wax foundations. Those are boxes of wax foundations, and then of course frames. I'm selling frames too.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time.
Thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. It was such a pleasure to meet Will and Mike and get to know how they're positively affecting their community through responsible beekeeping. And if you are a beekeeper or know of a beekeeper that's making a positive impact, please comment with their info. We would love to get in touch with them and feature them on this channel. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out. Also, take a minute and check out the links in the description below.